recognize Wayne County and their continued support of the entity. So, without getting too much into the weeds, the Aerotropolis was really born as an idea back in the late 90s, early 2000s when they opened the McNamara Air Terminal, and utilizing the airport as an economic development engine was the discussion, and there were different entities involved, and over the years it kind of morphed from being a program at Wayne County that was run by a staffer there to being the separate entity that it is today. One of the reasons I took the job is because Wayne County assured me that the Aerotropolis would be a key component of the broader county's economic development strategy going forward, and that we would be considered an extension of their team, specifically on projects in southwestern Wayne County. And Mr. Evans' approach to economic development is somewhat, it's back to the basics, it's fundamental. He's not concerned with taking credit, he's more concerned with getting projects across the finish line, and that is somewhat unique, to be honest with you, in the economic development space. There's a lot of credit seekers out there, and Mr. Evans is more focused on getting these projects completed than anything else. And his influence overall on the organization is key to the success of the organization going forward. The means of operation, I find there's some confusion around this, so I wanted to be clear. We are a standalone entity. We're a public body corporate, if that means anything to you. We were created under the Urban Cooperation Act of 1967, if anybody's looking for some exciting reading over the weekend. That is the same piece of legislation that created and governs the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. So same type of organization. The following year, 2010, was when the next Michigan development legislation was passed, and that really empowered us. So in typical Aerotropolis fashion, kind of being a schizophrenic organization, we were created before we really had the power to do anything. We were created in 2009 and then empowered in 2010. And I think I mentioned earlier, all of those entities that I mentioned have a seat on my board of directors. So that's a very, very quick overview, history, update on the Aerotropolis and how we market ourselves. I think it's best if I take questions at the end, otherwise we might not get through the whole presentation. Is that fair? Okay. So a quick update on what we've been up to. We currently have worked on 40 projects year to date. 40 different projects of companies looking to expand in Southeast Michigan. Of those 40 projects, 29 are currently active in our pipeline. To give you an idea of what that means, when I walked through the door on March 6th, we had 3, and we have 29 today. So we've increased our project pipeline almost tenfold. That growth is largely due, almost exclusively due to new and improved relationships with the state of Michigan and Wayne County. Again, Wayne County is utilizing us as an extension of their team, and the state support, which I'll get into in a minute, has been absolutely influential in the turnaround of the organization. It's tough to be a regional economic development program if the state's economic development entity doesn't recognize or acknowledge your existence, and that was the case, and it's not the case anymore. Specific to Taylor, and the page cut off, and I don't have the exact number, but I can tell you that 11 sites in Taylor, greenfield sites, 11 sites have been submitted on 9 different projects over the past 6 months. And of those projects, all but 2 are still active. So 7 of those projects are still in the works. Technically, there's another project that's still active. It hasn't died, but they've since chosen a different location in a different community. But Taylor is still, on the market, so to speak, in 7 of those instances. Wanted to provide you with a high-level overview of some of the more public projects that we've worked on and closed really over the summer. You've probably heard of many of them. The first project that I want to talk about, I can't tell you the name of the company just yet, but it's in Huron Township. This will be announced later this month or maybe next month. It's a $100 million investment. They're going to create 600 jobs. The Aerotropolis board just last week, or was it the week before, approved the industrial property tax district. Next month we'll be approving the tax abatement. Project Plumbrook was the Penske project that you may have heard about. They did a grand opening just last week. That's a $90 million investment. They're creating 400 jobs. We're competing against Indiana on that project. We established the district and approved a 10-year property tax abatement for Penske through the city of Romulus. And then Project Mercury, that's the Amazon project, that's the big project, the watershed project. $140 million investment, creation of 1,600 jobs. That's like landing an automotive assembly plant. That's probably the biggest project that Marco, my colleague, or I will ever work on in economic development. That's a significant project. And it should be a watershed moment for the entire region, not just the city of Romulus. The Aerotropolis will be providing roughly $6.5 million on some public infrastructure work that I mentioned earlier through this new vehicle that we're creating. So in total, over the summer, we did $330 million, or worked on projects of $330 million in capital investment, which equated in roughly 2,600 jobs created. Not bad for an organization that really didn't do anything for the previous 10 years. We had a hell of a 6 months. I'm very, very happy with where the organization is. I knew coming in that there'd be a lot of work operationally, internally, setting up processes and procedures and putting a foundation in place. I'm pleasantly surprised by how active and busy we've been working on projects, which at the end of the day is the reason we exist. From a business development standpoint, aside from the actual project work, I wanted to let you know what we've been doing and what we will certainly be doing more of next year. We go to a lot of trade shows. We sponsor a lot of events in key industries to get in front of companies and talk to them about their future growth opportunities. We spent roughly $5,000 over the past 6 months on that type of activity. We've placed 9 ads, business development ads in publications that are frequented by site selectors and CFOs and companies that are looking to expand. We spent almost $100,000 on those advertisements. That is not money that you provide. Again, the airport authority provides us with all of our marketing dollars, about $150,000 a year. Just to give you an idea of how, what's the word I should use, how backwards the Aerotropolis was previously. Every year for 10 years, almost 10 years, we were provided with $150,000 from the airport for marketing funds. And never in our existence have we come close to spending that $150,000. That's free money that's been left on the table year after year after year. And that's nobody's fault, just simply due to the fact that there wasn't really anybody watching or paying attention. And I've told the airport authority it's my priority to ensure we spend all of their money next year, and I try to do it this year. We've hosted 5 site tours, hosted 3 delegations, and are starting to engage with the local broker and developer community. These folks can be tremendous lead generators for us, and there really wasn't any relationship previously. And going forward, I think they will be as important as some of the other lead generators that we work with. So the local development finance authority, that is the tool that we created over the summer, or basically finalizing the establishment next week for the Amazon project. That is the vehicle that we're going to use to start funding some of these public infrastructure projects. Is anybody familiar with that term, local development finance authority? I know it's a mouthful. You may have one here in Taylor. Or do you have a TIPA?
We have a TIPA.
You have a TIPA. It's basically the same thing.
Okay.
They just stop.
We do have LDFA.
You do have an
And
LDFA.
DEA and a
Okay. Well, you got all the bases covered. Okay.
But the LDFA
So
is very,
that's
very
where
small.
that's where that 6.2 million is gonna come from?
Correct. So you now have, or will have, access to a next Michigan Development, Local Development Finance Authority. And the difference is that we have access to an additional source of revenue that local LDFAs do not. We can capture up to 50% of the state tax mills for up to 15 years, as long as we use that funding for public infrastructure projects. The Aerotropolis Executive Committee, not the board, but the Executive Committee serves as the board of the LDFA. And Taylor sits on that Executive Committee. So George or Mayor Sellers would be representing Taylor's interest in any decision made at the LDFA level. The Aerotropolis LDFA, or the next Michigan LDFA, can be layered over existing TIPAs, DDAs, smart zones, local LDFA, you name it. So just because it's in place doesn't mean you have to utilize it, but having it in place means that you can utilize it and access some of those funds that you wouldn't otherwise be able to access. So it's hard to explain this without something to reference. And again, we'll send you the presentation later tonight or tomorrow. But I wanted to quickly review what our strategy is for this going forward.